What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Grace Kid podcast. We have taken the past couple weeks off with, goodness, a lot of different things. Summertime. I went on a mission trip. We had tribes camp. We have so much going on. And so we took a couple weeks left, but we are jumping right back in. And before we get into it, I have a special guest, and they're going to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Blake. I am in 4th grade, and I'm 9 years old.
And me and Blake have known each other for a long time. We're like besties, right?
Best friends, yeah.
Best friends, forever. Yep. All right, well. What? Did you say not forever?
I said forever.
Oh, I thought you said not forever. All right, well, before we get into our story for today, we have a question of the day. Mm-hmm. So, Blake, do you remember our question of the day?
Yeah. What's the hardest thing about going back to school?
All right. So ask whoever you're with, and we'll be right back with our answer.
Jesus is calling. Open your eyes. No need to fear now, 'cause he's on your side. Just let go, and you'll find that he is everything you need. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
All right, and we are back. And so, Blake, what is the hardest thing about going back to school?
Not getting to see my corgis 24/7.
The corgis?
Yeah, the corgis.
Oh, well, our listeners don't know. So,
Okay.
Blake got 2 corgis this summer. What are their names?
George and Lou.
George and Lou, and they're brothers.
Yes.
And I'm just gonna be honest, they're getting a little big.
Chubby. Yep.
But they are cute.
They are.
Super cute.
And
So, all right. And for me, for me, it's not really going back to school. But I would think that, after summer you play a lot, you do a lot of different things. And then as soon as summer's over, it's like, oh man, I have to go to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time. I got homework now. There's no summer homework, So it's just a huge change of the schedule change, which can be hard.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, if you're following along with us in the one story plan, we're picking up right where we are. And so we are in a book about a woman, and the book is named after her. So Blake, what is her name?
Esther,
yeah. And Esther is in the book called what?
Esther,
yeah, that's right. Okay.
Just a little hard.
No, it's not that confusing. It's pretty easy. So we have a couple other characters as well in the story today. And so who is Esther related to?
Mordecai.
Yeah, Mordecai.
I can't say that name.
And there's also a king, and we were having a hard time saying his name. It's King, we think, Xerxes. So if you're in Esther, look at how you spell it, and you may be as confused as we are. But we listened to it in a couple different videos, and so we think we got it. King Xerxes. But or you could just say the King of Persia, which is the place. King of Persia.
Which is easier.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Versus Xerxes. So that's the other one.
To remember.
And then we have one last person, an angry man named Hammond. And we've been calling him Hammy for short.
Hammy.
He's an angry little Hammy. But okay, so in our story, so here we go. Let's just get into it. So King Xerxes, he fires a queen. So he's a king, fires his queen, and then he has like a contest for a replacement. And out of thousands of ladies, he picks one, which is the lady in our story, who is
Esther.
And so Esther is secretly Jewish, and she is an adopted daughter of one of the workers in the kingdom, who is
Mordecai.
Mordecai. And so Esther becomes the new queen. At the same time, there's kind of like a wicked man, and which is Hammond. And he almost has it all. He's number 2 in the kingdom. He's rich. He's powerful, and everyone but Mordecai bows to him. Mordecai, he's a Jew, and he only bows to God. He serves in the kingdom and recently reported an event that happened that saved the king's life. He saw two people, soldiers that were going to try to kill the king. And so Mordecai tells Esther tells the king Xerxes, and Xerxes ends up being saved because of it. And so you got to remember that, though. And so Haman wants it all, and Jewish Mordecai not bowing to him makes him angry, and so angry that he pretty much tricks the king into signing a law that will eliminate all the Jewish people in the kingdom on a certain day in about a year.
Yep. And they have absolutely no idea that it's Esther and Mordecai.
Yeah.
Mordecai.
They have no idea that they're Jewish. Like it's going to end them. They know that Mordecai is, because that's why they make the law, but they don't know about Esther. So to carry on, so Mordecai hears about this, and he is super sad. Like he is devastated, and so he tears his clothes, puts ashes. He's crying. He's really going through it. And so Esther sees Mordecai, and through several conversations realizes that perhaps God has allowed her to be queen to save her people. So she is super brave. So she willingly goes to the king uninvited. Now the king had this thing in his hands, and if he stuck it out, people could come to him. But if he wasn't feeling it, he didn't do it, and what would happen to them?
They would die.
They would die. So if you think about Esther, if he's not really feeling in the mood of talking to her, she could have died because of this. But she goes anyway. She is brave. So she goes, and the king is not in a bad mood. The king has already fired one. If you think about this too, the king has already fired one person. Like Esther could be the second queen fired. But she goes and bravely trusted God, and it ends up being okay. He listens.
Yeah.
And so she's Esther, or the king is like, oh, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. You remember that part? He's like, what do you want? I will give you even half of my kingdom. And so Esther doesn't ask for the kingdom, but invites
him to dinner.
Right. King Xerxes and our upset guy.
Hammond.
But to two banquets. One night, one the next night.
Yeah.
So Haman is angry. So one of the things of those 2 nights, two things are happening. If you think about this, Haman is so angry every time he looks at Mordecai, he can't wait to kill him. And even Haman's wife suggests, hey, why don't you just go and kill Mordecai? Just get it over with. But Haman thinks it's a great idea, and he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go wait for the king to wake up and, try to get permission. At the same time, though, the king, this is after the first dinner.
He cannot fall asleep.
He cannot sleep. Has that ever happened to you? You can't fall asleep?
Yep, and I bounce in my bed and eat snacks and
try to go back to sleep?
Try. It doesn't work that well until I make myself pass out. But
yeah, you gotta get really tired. Well, the same thing happens in this scenario, but King Xerxes has a different way to fall back asleep. He's like, he gets a scribe, and he pretty much has someone read to him everything that's going on. So this isn't really what it is, but if you could imagine, you're trying to fall back asleep, and the scribe is trying to make you fall back asleep. So he's telling you news that doesn't really matter. He's like, the bakers made 1,000 loaves of bread on Tuesday. Sarah's goat kicked Alfred, and he filed a complaint. It was sunny and 70 degrees out that day. And I mean, that's probably not what it was, but they're trying to get the king fall asleep. And it just happened that God, he always works behind the scenes. He works in everything. And that all the scrolls to be read and all the things going on in the kingdom, the scribe reads about how Mordecai saved the life of the king a while back. Out of all the things that the person could have read, he reads that. And so the king stops the scribe, and he's like, oh, what was done for Mordecai? What was done for Mordecai, Blake?
He saved the king.
Yeah, but did they do anything to reward him?
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
So the king asked who was up and around the castle, and guess who was up? Mr. Hammy. And so this is really funny. So the king calls Hammond in, and he's like, "What should be done for a man who truly pleases me?" And Hammond, who does he think he's talking about?
Him.
Himself, yeah. And so he's like, "Oh, this will be good. You know what?" He's like, "You know what you should do? You should have some of the king's officials lead the man around in the king's robe on the king's horse and have the officials say, 'This is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor.'" And the king replies how?
Yes. Now let's go and give it to Mordecai.
Yeah. Mordecai. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, that's a great idea. You know what? Let's go do that for Mordecai." Could you imagine Hammond's face? His jaw probably dropped. He's like, "You gotta be kidding me. No." And so Haman was about to ask to kill Mordecai like that day, but instead he has to publicly honor him. Afterwards, Haman goes home to his wife and tells her, like, "I'm toast." And this is the beginning of the flip of the story that we see. That God works in all circumstances. So soon after the second banquet, Esther reveals that she's Jewish, and Haman was the one that was trying to plot to kill her and her people. And instead of Mordecai dying, guess who ends up dying?
Hammy.
Yeah, Haman.
Hammy dies.
And so Mordecai then takes Haman's job. And so Mordecai then fixes it. He writes a new law where Jews can protect themselves, and instead of being destroyed, they can grow stronger. And so it's a really cool story. And so it makes me think, though, what does this story teach us? How do we apply this to our lives?
To trust God, to be brave, to,
Yeah,
all these
that's great.
things.
Trust God. And what did Esther do? She was brave. Really brave. She stepped out when something really bad could have happened, but she knew it was the right thing to do, and she was willing to risk it. And so, yeah, absolutely. I think that's true for me too. I think it shows us that we should be brave. We should follow God, trust God, and even bigger than that, God is in the details. There are things that we don't see, and we might not even mention God, that God did it. But God is in all the details of our lives and everything that we do. And so, to wrap up, what is a challenge we could give our listeners? What's a challenge?
Challenge to find a good friend at school for this year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Faithful friend.
Yeah, someone who helps us follow God, right? And that helps us trust Him more and helps us grow in our faith. That's great. I want to add a challenge too. A challenge, because everyone's going back to school right now, is to think about what are ways that you can be brave in sharing your faith. About like Blake, you went to SBO, you went to Tribes Camp. We did a lot of stuff at camp this year. And so one of the things that I challenge you and all the kids that went is there someone at your school that you should tell about what you learned this summer? So with that wraps up our podcast episode for today. And so for now, we say
goodbye.
See ya.
We'll sing for you. I'll sing praise for you. I will sing for you. I'll sing praise for you. I will sing for you. I will sing praise. I will sing praise for all of my days. Yeah, I will sing praise. I'm gonna keep walking the way. Yeah, I'll sing praise. 'Cause you're the one faith. Yeah, I will sing praise. For all my days. Yeah, I will sing praise. For all my days.
If you would like more resources regarding the One Story Plan, go to visitgracechurch.com/onestory. And if you'd like more resources for your kids, you can go to visitgracechurch.com/kids. We also have a YouTube channel, and you can find it by searching Visit Grace Kids on YouTube. If you like this podcast, we would love for you to like, subscribe, share, and leave us a comment. We'll see you soon.